I'm going to tell you a few stories from when I was in the Navy. For you don't know, I know I didn't get the numbers on the ship, but uh, that ship in the background is the USS Fox CG 33, uh, decommissioned in '92 or '93. I forget the exact year. And that was the last tour I was on. Well, we had one night. As an electronics technician, I was called up at 3 o'clock in the morning because the IFF identification friend or foe for one of the radars had went down. So I went up, did a quick check of what was going on, and due to the fact that we were underway, yes, it wasn't working, but we still had to get permission to troubleshoot it, open it up, and troubleshoot being underway. We got the permission, we opened it up, and test showed it was working. So we went up to combat, checked on the radars again. Yeah, it's showing up on the radars. So, not knowing at the time, we went back down to look at it more. And while we were closing it up, before we closed it up, me and another technician, one of the operators specialists, the OSs up in the radar, up in combat, told the TAO, hey, the 48 IFF's back up. So it got confused in translation there, and TAO reported to the captain that the equipment was working. Well, that was the first downfall because we didn't report it up and running. It's supposed to be the technician that reports it, not the operators. We just go to the operators to verify it's operational. So when it went down again, there came an announcement over the MC system. That's the announcing system on the ship. Electronics material officer, please contact the captain. As soon as we heard the announcement, me and the chief sitting in the room looking at the gear, looked at each other and says, "You don't think?" And I was like, "Most likely, yes." So the chief went into the office that's right there beside us and called down the MO and explained what was up real quick. So he'd know when he went into the captain's office what was going on. So they went in to explain it, and this is now we started really troubleshooting, and I found that the fault was when we closed it, it worked. When we opened it, it didn't. Or we closed it up, it did not work. When we opened it, it worked. So we assumed it was a heating problem. So we called up to get permission to swap out some components to test it. The component swapping didn't help us solve the problem. So we then started using heat gun, pulling the boards out, heating them up, putting them back in and see if it caused the problem. This went on probably 6 to 8 hours. So that's quite a while for a piece of equipment to be down. And the reason it was taking so long is because we had to turn it off, open it up, turn it off, take the board out, hook up our test probes, put it back together and slide it in and test it. Or we'd have it up on extension boards, heat it up with the test probe on. And then we'd have to cool it off to go to the next test. So that took a while. And as it came down that time, the other technician had gone down to eat, and I was in there alone. Oh, I hear the door open, didn't look up to pay attention because I was all in live equipment, so I had to pay attention to what I was doing. But out of the corner of my eye, walking up beside me, I saw 3 khaki uniforms. Well, in the Navy, khaki uniforms is E7 and above, especially underway. So that's the E7, E8, and 9, and then all the officer ranks. I I I heard hey, Australis, when do you think this is going to be operational? Are you going to be able to get it up and running? Without even thinking, I go, if these damn khakis would leave me alone, I'd be able to figure out what's going on. Then I hear, hey, Australis, do you realize who you're talking to? Now that clicked in my head as to what did I just do, and I slowly turned my head. And as I turn my head, I see the chest ribbons, and I see this surface warfare of my chief, which is the normal silver, and I see two gulls. Get get up a little higher. Now this didn't take that long, but it still seemed like forever. When I got up and saw who they were, one was the captain of the ship, the other was the electronics material officer, and then my chief. I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm working on it, sir. I don't understand what's going on. When we open it up, it's working, so it's hard to troubleshoot, and we have to keep closing it up or heating it." And that I saw that the captain kind of keyed in on that. He looks at the EMO and looks at me, and he sits there and goes, "Well, can we make it where it's operational as it is, and how could we do it?" And I said, "Well, we leave it open. We'd have to tie it in place." And he says, "How long would that work?" I said, "We can't guarantee the length of this will work, and it may fail later, but I'm pretty sure it worked for quite a while." And they discussed it, and they go, "Okay, so go ahead and strap it, tie it up so it won't fall, and also so it won't close, and we'll stop troubleshooting until we get back to an area where we can fix it." So we set up a board to block it from closing up, tied it both sides so it won't slide out and won't slide at an angle. We get that all done, tested it out, run it through a couple tests, and sure enough, it worked. That's where that ended it. Later on, the funny thing is that problem went away for some reason. And I think it was along the time that we had another fault come up. We changed some stuff out, and the problem went away. So I think the problem was we finally failed. But that's what happened. It teaches you pay attention to who you're talking to before you open your mouth. So yeah, that was one incident. Okay. Another incident was, if you don't know, shellback initiation, shellback ceremony on board vessels is what we go through when we cross the equator. And you become an honorary shellback. Of course, there's shellback, diamond shellback, and golden shellback, and they're for different meanings. One's for crossing the international equator at the international date line. One's for crossing the equator at the international or the GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, but in zero equator. One you can get by doing it over 50 times. I've only seen a couple people do that on board. That was on, I think, the Midway. We had one done it that many times. So we're getting ready for the ceremony, doing the stuff up, saving the things that may be needed for it. And the night before the ceremony, some of the shellbacks got together and decided to have some fun, because we found out that the executive officer on board had not had the shellback initiation yet. And captain had told him, "You will do the initiation." So he didn't have a choice. So it was about 8 o'clock, and on the ship, the captain called 8 o'clock meeting at night. So they called out 8 o'clock in the wardroom. So they got all the officers in the wardroom for the 8 o'clocks, or all the senior department heads and some of the division officers in. Well, some of the shellback officers that were a little junior or prior enlisted that weren't required to go to the 8 o'clock meetings decided to have some fun with some engineers. They went through and may or may not have used one of our spaces to hide out in while waiting for the XO to leave his stateroom, which is across from one of our radio rooms. He goes and leaves. There's we have some officers or some people downstairs that watched him go up to the boardroom. We also had a watch outside just in case he went outside and went through that way. And while they're in the meeting, these engineers and officers decided to take off the XO's stateroom door because he leaves it unlocked so people can drop stuff in during the day. So they take his door off. They take all of his personal items, put in desk drawers and all that, and then red tag every drawer in his office and safety tag his bunk as not safe. And they take the door outside on the weather deck because they're going to take it down to a forward storage. They haul it out. They take it down and walk right past the wardroom windows. And they took it on the side the captain was talking from, and the XO was standing beside him, so he didn't see it. All the officers said all they saw was these officers walking right by the window and just bobbing along. And they were wondering why, because it's 8 o'clock at night, it's dark. Why are they walking along the weather deck out there? They finished 8 o'clock, so the XO came back to his stateroom and realized he didn't have a door. And everything was red tagged. Well, to remove a red tag, you have to get the command duty officer to sign off and get the original person who put the red tags on to remove it. Well, for some reason, they couldn't find the original person who put tags on because his name was Davy Jones. So they had to find Davy Jones to remove the red tags. And in the shellback initiation, it's presided over by Captain or King Neptune. And then it also has Davy Jones. Sometimes he's the master of arms of the ceremony, but he's there. So that's when he figured out he's going to have to wait till after the ceremony to get the tags removed because it was installed by Davy Jones. So yeah, that was our fun that came back to haunt us, but still everybody laughed about it. But let me just say, some officers will get revenge. and he did. But it was still fun. Also on this vessel, I went for my surface warfare. And surface warfare, to get that is a time-consuming qualification, and there's a lot of studying, a lot of signatures. I forget how many signatures. I know it's well over 100 signatures that you have to get the qualification to go before the board. So people try it, people stop trying. And I was trying with another ET at the time, electronics technician. We got all the way down. I think we were at the engine room, part of the engine room. It was something that wouldn't easily get to get. Yeah, either underway or something. I forget what it was, but it was. I think it was the engine room. I mean, combat systems, TAO, bridge was all easy for us. We work up there with them, so we get those signatures. We went down and we both decided we had put the boat in dry, or we started decommissioning, tearing everything apart, and we gave up. I mean, both of us said, we can't. It's hard to do it now and find the right people because everybody's gone, everybody's transferring. We're having to remove equipment, things like that. But I think it was DCC came to me and my friend, and he goes, "What do y'all got left?" And I showed him my book. He's like, "Well, why do you quit?" And I think it was one signature that was required. And he sits there and he goes down. He takes it, looks at it. He takes us down to the engine room. He got the engineering officer, and we went over the stuff that it was. I think it was compressors or something. Yeah, I don't remember what now. So we went over it real quick, and he tells us, "Okay," and they signed it off. And so now we have every signature. So I went down and we went over the stuff. He actually he went with me and we made up flashcards for the engineering department because for me it was hard to remember that stuff because I deal with combat, deal with stuff up. So finally we got that signature. I got him with the admin officer that runs setting up the boards, and got my board. The other guy finally got his board. He actually threw his book over, or thought he threw his book over. We had made copies of it, and that's what he threw over. He didn't realize it was copies. So he still had his book to get the signature also. Do my board, had an issue with admin, and because it was only admin, they decided to let me keep all the other quals. I just had to go back down within 72 hours, no, 48 hours, and get the admin the admin chief to sign off. So I looked up my notes, same day, went down to the admin officer, asked him when he was available. Yeah, he said, "Oh yeah, right now." So he did it for me and signed off. So now I had all my quals. He took it, signed the book. He took my book and took it up to the XO. Immediately, they just walked it through, took the XO signature, got the captain's signature. So because we were decommissioning, he wasn't going to have a ceremony, and I had already had orders to leave to go to the Bunker Hill at the time. So he's like, "Well, we need to knock this out." So we did it in the radio room, and of course, the electronics technicians were there. A couple of chiefs, the DC chief that was helped me finish it off, and of course the XOCO and operation officer and the electronics military officer was there. EMO. They go to pin. They thanked us for our time, gave us the East-West pin, pinned it on, left the backs off, of course. And that's when they decided to pin it on. Well, most of the people were kind of nice about it, just barely tapped it. But the EMO, well, that's where part of where the XO got his revenge, because he put a little more effort into the tag. So now it's really hurt. And then the chief that helped me at the end. He goes, well, congratulations, Embraer's back, and just pins that sucker on there as hard as he could. Oh, it looked like as hard as it could, but it really wasn't. It still hurt. So that was how I got my surface warfare pin. And anybody that gets that, they deserve it. It was a hard job. It was a hard job to get, a hard qualification to get. Of course, it's also worth 50 points on the exam. So that was it on that. Well, this may be the last story I tell today. So on board this vessel, we were, what was it? Is this the one? I don't remember. I forgot what it was, but I know we always had fun and stuff like that. Oh yeah, there it is. One of the IFF equipments. It's the 49 radar. Is we had a issue where the IFF is flashing on the radar screen. Now that's strange; it shouldn't flash. So first we blamed it on the display, saying the display was causing it. And then as we went through and started discussing it, of course, everybody on board, it's their problem. So we got there, we opened up the display, and they showed us where the signal was coming and going, coming into it. So that eliminated their equipment. So we went back down, picked up the test equipment on the front of the equipment, and we're watching it. It was working. And it went nothing. Well, as I watched it, you could watch the inputs, the signal going out to the displays. It would do a little rise and then fall slowly. And it just be like that. And as I was sitting there and I started watching it and realized as we're rolling back and forth, that's when the signal was going up and back down, up and back down. So yeah, that's why it was what was happening. And we got what was a TDR, timed off domain reflectometer, which will send a signal out the cable and tell you if there's a break in it, there's a short in it, or if it goes all the way out to the antenna. So we hooked it up and it gave us the reading and we measured it out. You take the time of the signal and use a formula to figure out how many feet it is. You can actually look on sometimes. And actually, the one we had actually had the feet on it. That's a small signal. I mean, it doesn't take long for a radio signal to go from here, from the lab, which is right about, or from the equipment room right here, down through here, up this mast, up to this antenna. Come to find out, we tasted it, and it measured so many feet. So we went, followed the cable, tore up the ceiling in the officer's mess right in here. And they weren't happy about that one. So we found it and went out into the hallway in the officer's wardroom, went out to the hallways. So we put the ceilings back up, of course, cleaned up the wardroom, and found that here the signal was good. When you stepped over, it was bad. So right here in the expansion joint, the twisting of the ship, it sheared the cable, or broke the cable inside. So when it shifted back and forth, it would go in and out of that. And you have a outer sheath and the shielding and then the baroelectric foam material. And then the inner and this one is a helix soft or open core for the center conductor, which is the main signal goes down. So it was just twisting where it was and make the connection and coming back and make the connection. So the SRF ship repair facility in Yokosuka, is it Yokosuka? Well, one of them sent us out a piece of cable. Wasn't exactly the same helix we got because we sent out a CAS rep to get the cable replaced, and due to the decommissioning schedule, they weren't going to spend the money to replace the whole cable. The SRF repair facility, I think it was Japan, sent us out a smaller helix cable, which was solid core, connectors to put on them, and then we hooked it up. And that was, yeah, that was on the way to relieve or get rid of our arms, our missiles and 5-inch rounds. We were going to drop them off for decommissioning, get rid of all the ammo. We replaced that cable, we hacksawed it, and put a new connection in. And when we tested, it was actually better than when the cable was itself. So they couldn't see the splices or anything. And we went along later and decommissioned the ship, which is funny. You have to go through a inspection that ensures the equipment's to work to shut the ship down. To someone to explain, but hey, it's the military, it's the government, it's the Navy, so they have their reasons. But the other thing is when you have the don't ask, or no, yeah, we cannot confirm or deny the presence of nuclear weapons on board a vessel. Well, they can say that all they want, but people on board knew when. There were certain indications that were. But yeah, this is fun. Had the launcher up here up in front was for the missiles, the SM-1s. I think it was SM-1s, some SM-2s, and some other missile. I forget what it was, but it wasn't the harpoons because the harpoons were in the back. They had a 4 launchers pointing towards the port, 4 launchers pointing towards the starboard. So yeah, that was back there. And actually it's port starboard, so yeah. And if you want to remember port starboard, just remember port has 4 letters, left has 4 letters. So that's port is left. That's the little thing the bosun made on board taught me way back in the beginning. It was 4 letters, 4 letters. There you go. And I forget what the red and green. What how you got the? Got me to remember those right now. I'll remember it later. But yeah, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for paying attention to my videos, and hopefully you enjoyed it.